This is my top 10 favorite games of all time. It is a part of a series called the top 50 favorite games of all time that is really the top 70 favorite games of all time because I've added multiple games on the same slot. But then again, it's just a list for fun, so it's not like it's anything serious. These games to me are the greatest games ever made and the greatest games I've ever played. There's not much else to say other than let's get into it. I do want to thank you all for tuning into this whole series, and I will honestly be kind of sad to see this go, even though I'm kind of happy that I don't have to think about this anymore. Let's do this. First, it's The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Now, this game being in a top 10 list, I don't know if it's rare, I don't know if it's strange, but to me, it's perfect. It's exactly where it should be. This is, to me, the greatest Zelda game of all time. It is the greatest Zelda game ever made. Of course, we all have different opinions, that's fine. To me, this game has the best dialogue of all of the series, the best written dialogue of all the series. It is the most original dialogue of all the series. It is my favorite story in all of the Zelda games I've played, and I've played all the main console ones and even some of the 3DS ones and the Game Boy ones. To me, it has the best characters, people like Impa and Groose. You know, Groose grows over time. You as Link, for the first time I've ever seen, not for the first time, but like for the first time really, kind of grows as a character, like in a traditional sense. Not only in like powering up, but you feel like you're becoming a different person as the game goes on. The same with freaking Zelda. They think they use Zelda better than every other Zelda game, and I'm pissing so many people off, but that's just my personal opinion. It's such a great quest for Zelda because you fall in love with Zelda without even seeing her. Like you have this connection to her without even once like talking to her throughout the whole game from the point that she goes missing. Of course you do see her in some parts of the game, but you get what I'm saying. I love this game so freaking much. It's pretty. It's unique. The areas and dungeons are fun. The bosses are some of the most fun bosses I've ever played as well. And motion control was never a problem for me in these games. These type of games to me are just like so much fun, motion control games, and like to be honest with Zelda, it just makes it even better. The emotion I felt in this game is connected deeply to the music. The music in this game is fantastic. Now, we can all agree on one thing, that the music of Skyward Sword is some of the best in the series. And when that Fi's Farewell plays at the end of the game, you better be knowing that I cried my freaking eyes out. In fact, to end this part of the list, I'm going to just show you that part of the game where I bawled my freaking eyes out. I do not have the capability to fully understand the human spirit, Link. But now, at the end of my journey with you, as I prepare to sleep within the Master Sword forever, I experience a feeling I am unable to identify. I lack sufficient data to be sure of my conclusion, but I believe this feeling correlates the closest to what your people call happiness. Next on this list is Resident Evil Remake. To me, this is the greatest horror game of all time, and it all comes down to the fear of choice. The fear of should I shoot or should I run is always terrifying. It's something that I feel like is lost in modern survival horror games. And I'm using quotations for survival horror games because I feel like you don't even need to survive. Like, you're just running and running and running and hiding, which to me isn't scary anymore. It's just not scary to me anymore. But these type of games are terrifying. The fact that they give you a gun and give you the choice to shoot. I'm going to be doing a full video on why I think the freedom of choice and the choice to shoot or run is important in horror games and why we need it to come back. I guess I'll do that much later. The monsters in this game are introduced in some of the best ways that I've ever seen. The monsters in this game are amazing. When they introduce a monster, you know that it's going to be serious, you know that it's going to be deadly, and it makes them even more terrifying when you're fighting them. Things like Neptune the shark, the hunters that get introduced, even the plants and the bees are freaking terrifying. Like, Lisa Trevor being probably the most terrifying boss of any single game that I've ever played. She is so scary, and the fact that like you don't actually get to like kill her is even more scary. Lisa Trevor, and the thing is, people go like, oh, Resident Evil isn't scary. I don't think you actually, I think you're just thinking of the modern Resident Evil games. The original Resident Evil games were freaking scary as hell, like so freaking scary. And a lot of people go, well, I wasn't scared, and it's like, that's great, man, that's freaking like freaking-tastic, you're freaking amazing. Like the Crimson Heads are freaking terrifying as well, how they just pop up after you shoot them after like the longest time. And the black tiger spider, that, oh my god, it makes my skin crawl. I couldn't stand it the first time I played it, and I honestly think it is one of the most terrifying bosses in any single video game. And of course you have the Tyrant as well. I just think all those enemies just work so well to make the game even more terrifying. Every time when you calm down and you get used to an enemy, they introduce something else that's even more freaking scary. They have such amazing level design in this game. The hallways lead to other hallways. It's kind of really hard to explain, but if you see a map of this game, it's kind of amazing what they're able to do. It's actually terrifying as well that games really haven't gotten it much better since then in terms of level design, in terms of house level design and mansion level design. Again, just look at a map. I'll put a map up on the screen of how amazing this looks. It really is intricate and like so detailed as well. It's so much fun to explore because of that, because you don't know what room you're going into and some doors are kind of still locked. And of course this game looks amazing as well. It's really hard to explain why this game is so amazing without playing it, but it is an amazing game. The next game on the list is Tekken 4. The unlocking characters in this game is something I've always missed. I bought this was the first game I had for the PlayStation 2, and a lot of people kind of turned their back on this game because of, well, a lot of things. Stairs was one of them, the fact that like they put stairs in the arenas and the fighting stages, which I can totally understand why like putting stairs in a fighting stage is freaking stupid, because like, you know, then there's different levels and like that's not always gonna be the same in every single fighting stage. So you're practicing in one stage and then your friend picks the other stage and all of a sudden it's a different terrain completely. I can totally understand that, but to me the story deepens in this game. I spent hours playing it. With the story deepening, it's like the characters became like more like drawn out and detailed. You understand more about them, you understand who they hate, who they love. This is when the story started to get really serious, because it had to get serious, it had to stop being goofy. You're talking about devil genes here, you're talking about like death and murder and sabotage. They had to get serious with this. I still love how like everything feels in this game. The music actually kind of sends chills down my spine when I hear it. I remember I used to spend hours upon hours, because I didn't have a memory card originally. I bought a pre-owned PS2 and I didn't have a memory card for it, and I would unlock the characters every day and just keep the PlayStation on and fight with that. And my brother was away for 2 weeks, and it was one of those moments where you talk to your older brother on the phone, hey, I unlocked all the Tekken characters, and he's like, yeah right, you unlocked them all by yourself. And it's like, no, I really did. And I just remember that so clearly, just me being like, I totally did unlock them, which I did like every single day. I became so used to that game. Yeah, that I love this game. Right above Tekken 4 on this list is Tekken Tag Tournament. This is a stupidly fun game. It has some of the most amazing music of any game that I've played in the Tekken series. In fact, I'd say it has the best music of all the Tekken series. The Tekken Tag Tournament games have always been really fun. I put Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on this game, but this list. But Tekken Tag Tournament honestly is just is one of the best games there, because it has the mixture of like, and kind of like the transition from Tekken 3 to Tekken 4. You still have some of the most amazing rivalries and some of the most goofy cutscenes. But also some of the like most non-canon fun you're ever gonna have. And speaking of non-canon, my favorite character in all the Tekken series is Dead, Jun Kazama, and this is the only way you get to actually play as her, is either in this or in Tekken Tag Tournament 2. I have a connection with this game from my childhood that I just think about this game and it makes me happy. Like, we all have those games that you just think about and you're like, I love this game so much. I spent hours in this game. Also, it has like the best intro of any video game I've ever seen in my life. I'm gonna say hands down. In fact, like, I'm gonna show you a tiny bit of it right now. I think it's honestly freaking fantastic.
Beyond the scope of light, beyond the reach of love, what could possibly await? And yet we seek it, insatiable.
Now here's where the ultimate of cheats come in. This is me putting the entire Soulsborne series in one number. And you're probably like, Calvin, like, why would you do that? That's like freaking so many games. And I would say to you, do you really want a top 10 list where I take out the 3 that just came behind me and the other ones, and just it's all like, this Dark Souls, this Dark Souls, this Dark Souls. It would be like take up 5 spaces. I think that I love them all equally, with just some of them edging it out the other ones. Let's go through these games like there's no tomorrow. Dark Souls 1, I recently played the remaster, and I think it's probably the definitive way to play that game. Again, like in terms of, I love level design. I think the level design is fantastic. It's one big circle, just like the entire story is one big circle. Amazing, right? And again, like a lot of people go like, there's no story in the Souls games. There are the people that don't look for it, and that's fine. It's not for people who, like, it's a game that you can have fun without even knowing the story. But then people who want to look for the story can look for the story deep down below. Dark Souls 1, I think, is very fluid. It's very kind of like moving. It's constantly moving. You're constantly moving. It doesn't feel like you're ever like slowed down or trapped or bogged down, which is important in a video game for me as well. The boss battles are some of the most epic encounters ever. Well, as I do believe that they've gotten better as time goes on, but I feel like the bosses in this game, story-wise and history-wise, are the most terrifying. Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 is a game that I love even more than Dark Souls 1. When I say even more, I say it edges out just by a slight amount. I think the game of Dark Souls 2 has the most freedom. It has kind of like a special kind of story to it. It has the most weapons, the most freedom at the start of the game. There's more buffs. There's stuff that bring it down, of course, like adaptability, but like I think they give you enough souls that doesn't even matter. I've played so much of this game and I'm not even done, and it's the same with Dark Souls 1. I'm on like 40 plus playthroughs of all these games, and it's really easy to do so. People are like, oh, you're lying. It's really easy to do so once you've played through the game a couple of times, and I think a lot of people in the comment section would agree. It's actually kind of easy to do over like after a while. I think the story of Dark Souls 2 gets a lot of bad raps, but I think that the main story is fantastic. It's when they link it to Dark Souls 1 is when it falls apart a little bit. Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is the last Souls game that I've played, and the last Souls game everyone has kind of played. Dark Souls 3, again, I think out of all the combat is probably my favorite out of all of them in terms of the first 3. Again, it's just really hard to like. It's good level design. It doesn't have amazing level design, but it has really good level design. The bosses are some of the most fun. I forgot to say about Dark Souls 2, but it's the same with Dark Souls 3. The bosses have become dances. It's so much. It's like you're moving in motion to their movements as well. You're moving together. You're kind of working together to kind of make this dance that eventually will kill these creatures. And it's. I think Dark Souls 3 gets some of the most amazing boss battles. I think the Twin Brothers and the Dragon Slayer armor is my favorite 2 bosses out of the games. And let's move on to talk about Bloodborne, because I know a lot of people love Bloodborne. I love Bloodborne too, and it's one of the most amazing games of all time. Thinking about it makes my blood born. I always went about like I always went to like vouch for Bloodborne, even when people hated it. I had to like defend this game, and there's not a lot of people that hate it. Even people that probably don't like it will play it and love it. It's a darker game. It's a more sinister game. The story is so interesting because it's a singular story that everyone like can just get into on one level. And that's what I'm worried about Bloodborne 2. Is it gonna like try to link the story, then we're not gonna like it anymore? But I do think Bloodborne does a great job of having a singular story. And not only that, like the combat is really fast and really fun. Like I think a lot of people from the outside go, this is the same as Dark Souls. But the people who played Bloodborne, and I know who you are, will know that it's not the exact same as Dark Souls. It is an interesting game. It's a beautiful game. It has one of the most amazing day-night cycles I've ever seen in a video game. It has some of the most creepiest bosses. The bosses are not really dances. They're more just like these creatures trying to bludgeon you over and over again, and it's freaking amazing. I can't say enough good stuff about this game, but I have to say enough good stuff about it because I'm moving on to my favorite of all the games, Demon Souls. Demon Souls has a special story. It has this story that will always last and always be just a singular thing that can never be touched. It is, to me, the best story of all the games. There are so many great aspects to this game that I feel like would be overlooked by a person who never wants to play them. You have the story of this kingdom being like destroyed by souls. You have two different like rivalries going on between miracles and spells. The miracles, people thinking that the spells are kind of like these like work of the devil, and they're even on two different sides of the nexus when you go in there, and that type of rivalry that's going on there. There's stuff like is Alant actually still alive? Is Alant as bad as he says? Who is Alant? That through the whole game you hear about King Alant. There's stuff like the Valley of Defilement that I don't want to spoil what happens in the game because I really do want people to play, but the Valley of Defilement, where you hear about the boss of that game, that level, for the whole time you're going through the area. There's people, you meet the merchant hag, and she's like, you want to buy something for my child? Did you hear about the girl who moved in down there? Everyone thinks she's so pretty, and she was like the prettiest girl there until the new boss came in, and she became the prettiest girl. Again, layout is amazing. There's so many great variations of this game. Again, there's boss exploits and weaknesses. The bosses to me are some of the I think the most interesting out of all of the whole games, like all the series, all the Soulsborne series. It's hard, but it's so much fun. I think it's probably the hardest of all the games, but I think like it works well with its difficulty. Parrying is the best, armor looks the coolest. It feels like an abandoned lived-in world, if that makes sense. It's abandoned, but it feels like someone actually lived here before, which again is kind of difficult to do, but I think they do very well. It's scary and imposing. Dying matters in this game. Not everything is as it seems throughout the whole game. The dragons are actually threatening, which again is something that I feel like is lost from Dark Souls. Yuria the Witch, her type of story where like you meet her and she's been defiled in this tower. And eventually she gives you spells. And again, I don't want to spoil her story because it's so good, but you have to play this game. And I don't want to leave it on, Yuri was defiled. She's a freaking amazing witch. You've like people like King Doran. You have like a rival, as I said, a rival between like the souls, like the soul arts between the freaking miracles and the goddamn spells. I'm so excited. I'm gonna play this game again tonight. This game is so freaking good and I can't wait to play it. Next on this list is Persona 3. This game means so much to me. I've played through this game twice. It's about a 60-hour RPG. The characters in this game are so beautiful, so amazing. There is kind of like a definitive connection that you have with all these characters, which you can say throughout all the Persona games, but even in this game there is a really beautiful connection to all these characters. The social links are even fantastic in this game as well. Again, you go through this game meeting up with people and friends and girls, and again, it's not just a dating sim and it's not even a dating sim because you don't go on dates and the girls aren't stupid. But like you feel like this really deep connection with all of your characters, and like it goes from like I have to do this to rank up my social link to I want to see what this person's doing today. It gives you so much freedom in this game. If you beat the dungeons in like one day or one time, you can literally just go through the whole entire month, 27 days or so, and just do what you want. To me, it's one of the best protagonists ever. It's some of the best boss designs in history, some of the most amazing boss designs, and some of the most creepy and meaningful boss designs. There's a gradual destruction in this game, which kind of like leads to really amazing imagery. The gradual destruction, I mean, is kind of like you see your world falling apart around you. It's one of the darkest games, honestly, ever. The story is unnerving, but like every character kind of gets to breathe throughout the entire story, which is good. There's stories like Junpei and Chidori, which is something that like seems typical at the start, but it's probably one of the most amazing love stories I've ever seen in a video game. It feels like you were a part of something in this game, which is hard to do and difficult to do in some of these games, but it feels like you are a part of something, which I think some games get wrong a lot. You feel like you're part of an uprising of sorts. And of course, talk about the music is some of the most amazing ever. I think the portable version with the female version of Tone has the better music. But I still think through the foreign exchange shooting game and the portable version has, like, honestly such fantastic music. I think Persona is known for their amazing music now. Next on this list is Final Fantasy X. And it always makes me kind of like almost tear up instantly when I think about this game. To me, this is the best love story across all media, regardless of movies, TV shows. To me, this is the greatest love story of all time. This game gets underestimated a lot. Some of the most epic boss encounters ever. I can remember Seymour, and like every single boss in this game like has importance to it and has weight to it. It has meaningful, impactful emotions and impactful like problems that lead into the story. Each boss, like every single boss. Some of the bosses, yeah, you can say like, oh, well, they're just there to like for an interesting boss battle, but then you find out later on that they actually were being controlled by something or something like that. Seymour is one of the best villains I've ever seen in a video game, and I freaking miss him so much. Even though he's a creep, I want him to be in another video game. I want him to be in a fighting game or something. I miss him as a character like all my freaking life. Let's talk quickly about the ha 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 scene. If you've seen James Arnold Taylor, he is one of the most amazing voice actors of all time. At the time, this game was unheard of, having that much of a script for a video game. In the script, it says, laugh awkwardly. In the context of this scene, it is one of the most sweetest moments of all time. But in YouTube videos where it just shows the ha 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 ha, it's not as sweet. But that is, honestly, it adds to the story so much, and like, you're missing out if you're not playing this game, if you're only thinking of ha ha ha, because that's all people say when you go like, oh, I love Final Fantasy X, someone goes, oh, what about the laugh? And you're like, can you name anything else that you hate about the game? Well, what about the laugh? You know, I know there's people that don't like the game for other reasons as well. The characters complement each other, and they have stories that change them throughout the game. You will see a definite change in all your characters as you're playing the game. And of course, as I said, Tidus and Yuna. Tidus and freaking Yuna, man. Tidus and Yuna. Tidus is one of the most amazing protagonists ever. And he'll never get credit for it because he's just happy-go-lucky. Because the typical protagonist has to be gruff and tough and angry. But Tidus is a real person. He gets emotional. He's selfish. He's like a spoiled teenager. He's exactly who like a real person is. Tidus and Yuna, man.
Who am I?
It was hard to put this next on the list at all, because now we're getting into the really serious parts, because the top 3 is something really important. Next is Persona 5. To me, it has the best dungeon crawling of any RPG in history, and I'm pissing so many people off with this list, but that's just my personal opinion. It has some of the best combat as well. The combat is really fast, and it moves correctly, and it never really kind of drags on for me. I loved every aspect of fighting in this game. In fact, I would just sit down for hours and just go through the dungeon in one go. There's stealth mechanics in this game that don't bog down the game. It's not like, oh, like the whole game is stealth. You can choose to do stealth, or you can run in like head on. I honestly think that the 90 hours that I played in this game felt like 2. It's so freaking insane. There's the dungeons in this game, by the way, when you're dungeon crawling through them, I just want to like just talk about them really quickly. There's places like castles that you go through. There's banks, but like all of them kind of connect to the individual character because they are their inward palaces. Every single character, like from the side characters to the main characters, are so important to me. They're like real people that I know and that I remember. Like, I remember each of their stories. I remember how they feel. I remember like how they changed throughout the story. I remember how they like grew up throughout the story, because this is a bunch of teenagers growing up, and they really do grow up throughout the game. I also think that has the best design out of out of any RPG, really. Mostly, I'd say almost the best design. And also the jazz music, man. Like, who doesn't like the music? Again, Persona music has some of the best music of any series, and I think it honestly is the second best of any series. Like, to hear this music as you're going through a dungeon is utterly amazing and beautiful, and it gets you hyped up, it gets you into the right emotions. They know when to play the music at the right times to get you like into the emotion that needs you to get into. It works extremely well. Everything I do, I remember. Bad guys that are fun to take down, I remember. Like, the bad guys are important because there's like this feeling that like, oh, well, I'm trying to escape with video games. What's a better escape than taking down some of the most evil fuckers who are around in this world? You take down a freaking rapist. You take down a moneylender who is taking advantage of like poor people. You're taking down like people who like they overwork their employees and don't pay them well enough. These are real situations in real life that you get to do in this game, because in all honesty, it's pretty difficult to take those people down in real life, but in this sense you get to do it in this game. I was bawling at the end of this game, and I wish I could go back to the beginning again. I really do.
True is elusive, it's no way to be found. Yeah, the truth can never be written. That it's not in any magazine. You can see it on your TV screen. True.
Next is Persona 4. Persona 4 is my second favorite game of all time, and it was really tough choosing between this and Persona 5, but I still think they're both so amazing. They could interchange on any day. This game is about a connection with friends. It's about love stories. It's a great murder mystery. It is probably one of my favorite murder mysteries of all time. It's actually where I realized that I like murder mysteries. It's all of those things mixed together. Social links feel important in this game. You feel like you want to keep going with each of these characters and find out what their ending is. In fact, when you don't get to find out some of their endings, you feel pretty bad. I want to hang out with everyone, really. Feels like actual teenagers in the game, each of them with their own issues, like their own issues that they have to overcome as teenagers, not only as teenagers but as people, because you have adults as well that have to overcome their own issues. And each issue is believable, and each issue they have is interesting, that you want to see it through to the entire end. I spent 60 hours with these people, but really you spend in the game days, hours, weeks, minutes, going to restaurants, practicing karate, coming to terms with our sexualities and our own insecurities and our inability to save the ones we love. This is something that happens throughout this whole entire game, and it's so meaningful and impactful to me. The cast, to me, transcends video games, because I don't even think of it as a video game anymore. I think of these as like real people, which is kind of dangerous, I know, but I don't mean like, oh, they're my best friends. I mean like, when I'm like, oh, Chie is cool, I don't go like, oh, that video game character Chie is cool. I go, Chie is cool, which we all have those video games that we do that, you know? I know the characters like friends, as I said. I know them like these interesting people. The dungeon crawling does get a lot of flack, but to me, I still like the dungeon crawling. It's fun. They have some of the best boss designs. In fact, again, the boss designs mean something to the actual thing that you're fighting. Every twist and turn in the game is just so interesting. It's like, oh, this is true, now this is a lie. You found out the truth, but is this really the truth? Like it's about reaching out to the truth. That's the whole thing. And of course, it is bubblegum pop is the music that you have in this game. And it's a great soundtrack as well. In fact, it's one of the most amazing soundtracks ever. It's my second favorite soundtrack of all time. At the end of this game, I was crying like a baby. Like bawling like a baby. I remember I had my arm over my eyes. It was 1 a.m. and I had it pressed into the bed, and I was heaving and crying and bawling, and I couldn't understand why, and I couldn't stop. So badly that like I'm replaying it now, and I know it's coming, and I know I'm gonna bawl my eyes out again. There was one point in this game that I'm not gonna say who, but someone might have died, and we thought they died, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm never going to see these characters again. And I started bawling again, because I thought like, this is the saddest fucking shit ever, man. But yeah, Persona 4 is my second favorite game of all time. I don't think many people are surprised when I say this, but Shadow of the Colossus is my favorite game and what I think is the greatest game ever made. To me, the director is the best director in all media across all productions, because he has made me feel something more than any other movie has or any TV show has been able to do. The most amazing world I have ever been to in this game. It's called the Forbidden Land, but there's so much interesting aspects of this land that actually makes it feel forbidden. You don't understand why it's forbidden at first, and you look at different things like grass is growing over here when it really shouldn't be. There's a whole smog fog that's in one singular area. There's like sandy areas that shouldn't be there. Like the desert shouldn't be so connected to this area like this. It just shouldn't be like this. And it's like a half and half world. Rain shouldn't be happening at this point. The snow shouldn't be happening at this point. It does feel like a forbidden world. There's a connection to the characters even though you don't ever say a word to them or you don't have a conversation with them. The girls in your life, man, the most important girls in your life in this game, Mono and Aggro. Mono in general like is one of the most amazing characters ever, and she doesn't say a word. Aggro again is probably the most amazing companion that you can have. Boss design in this game, the boss designs in this game are I don't think anyone's able to duplicate it. And the way to the boss is just as interesting, even more interesting. You're seeing, like, you kind of see, like, you're going through this whole land, and at this point I can do without a sword, which I'm kind of bragging about. But this game's bosses are the most important part of this game in a lot of ways, and they are kind of like puzzles. It's like a puzzle game with these bosses. I have a full playthrough of this game on my channel, and I really feel like it's my favorite playthrough, or one of my favorite playthroughs I've done on this channel. Each boss has its own unique abilities and powers and actions and weaknesses, and they all are really not difficult to find, but when you find them, you feel like a freaking king when you eventually find them. It's really game. There is no game like it, and people have tried to duplicate this game, as I've said. People have tried, and they still can't duplicate this game. It gets it so right, the isolation, but you're never alone. There's like this feeling of isolation, and then as soon as you hear Aggro go, or something like that, or like, whatever horses do, you feel like, okay, I'm not actually alone. You always see Mono throughout the whole game. Like, you see her constantly, which makes you, again, like, reason why I love Mono as my favorite female character of all time. She's just lying there, but she's so important to the story, so freaking important to the story. Just this girl standing there. Another reason why it's forbidden. She's there for months, what we can assume is months, and she hasn't faded at all, but the Colossus around her are fading her, but she doesn't fade at all. The tiny amount of backstory they give leads to the ambiguity and the questions that you have throughout your whole years. I'm so glad Fumito Ueda has never revealed any of those freaking stories. I'm so glad that he's never told anyone the secrets. There's a finality to the game and an openness at the same time. You feel like you're satisfied, but there is an open-ending part to the game where it's like you can just, think about this game for the rest of your life. I have not played a better game. This game, to me, is the greatest game of all time, and of course that's an opinion, but of course we can all give our opinions. You all did give your opinions, and I'm very thankful for those, but Shadow of the Colossus to me is the greatest game ever made. I know people are gonna, like, people always say to me, like, oh, well, the controls are bad, and, like, the answer I will say to that is, how come I can beat the game in, like, 2 hours and a half now? And people can say, oh, you played the game so many times. Yes, I play the game, like, once a month, but, like, that has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about the original version, by the way, the PS2 and the PS3 version. I do have my issues with the PS4 version. I like it, but I think it's a great way to play the game. But the secrets in this game, and the way this game feels and the way this game looks, I feel like it's an art piece more than a video game, and that's so pretentious to say, but I don't care. Yeah. Guys, I know I was talking at different levels through this whole video, but I'm sorry about this. This is the end to my series, and I'm going to be doing another thing and stuff like this from now on. But it's going to be more scripted. I think I'm going to be scripting a lot of videos where I'm going to do, like, different videos based on a lot of these games and a lot of these stories that I had. I've run by a few of them by you guys, and I'm kind of sad that this is over because I really do like all of these video games and I want to talk about this some more, but I feel like these top 10 are my definitive favorites. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for watching this series. You guys are honestly the best. You guys and gals are honestly the best, and not to get sappy, but you guys make me happy, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.